The minimum wage in the United States has been a fairly hot topic for at least the past couple of years now, and with good reason. People simply can't live on minimum wage. They don't make enough money. They exist below the poverty line and need to uh, rely on the government for additional assistance just to get by. That's not ideal, certainly. In fact, doing it that way is essentially corporate welfare, because instead of forcing businesses and corporations to pay their employees enough money to live on, we're allowing them to pay them so little that we still have to spend our tax dollars in order to help people survive. Now, the drive lately has been for a $15 an hour wage. And the reasoning behind that is that that is the level of pay that you would need to be at to exist above the poverty level. Now, obviously, that's unfeasible because that would be almost doubling the current minimum wage. It would be ideal, but it's just not going to happen. So I think the next best thing is $10.10 an hour, and that's really what the push is going for. And this number comes from the fact that had the minimum wage kept pace with inflation since 1968, the level it was at then, it would currently be $10.10. Now, in fact, if the minimum wage had kept pace with the level of productivity since then, it would actually be over $20 an hour now. Obviously, that also is not happening. So let's just take what we can get and what is fair. Now, one argument often trotted out against raising the minimum wage is that it's going to cause the economy to falter. It's going to be a setback. Well, every time that the minimum wage has been raised in the past, it's been successful. And the reason for this is because people who make that amount of money typically spend 95 to 100% of their money. They're not off investing in things or saving things. They're putting that money directly back into the economy. So the economy is going to grow. And in fact, they're often going to be spending their money at businesses that also employ other minimum wage workers because they tend to have the lowest prices. And that's going to just continue a positive feedback loop and help grow the economy and help create more jobs. People argue that, oh, hey, it's going to cost jobs. Well, that might be true, especially in smaller businesses that only have a few employees because they won't be able to afford the additional labor costs. But overall, it's a net positive for the economy and for society. Yeah, some people may lose their jobs, but a job that doesn't pay you enough money to even exist on without needing additional assistance is not a job worth having. If you can work full time or even overtime at a job and still not cover your basic living expenses, that's not even a job worth having. Conservatives and libertarians, they want the free market to just work and dictate what the wage will be. In their utopia, they would abolish the minimum wage and everyone could work for $2 an hour and unemployment will be essentially zero. But what would be the point? No one would be able to survive. It'd be glorified slavery. But that's actually what they're driving for. It doesn't make any sense. The ratio of executive pay in comparison to that of the average worker has completely skyrocketed in the past 30 to 40 years. It is out of control. The rich keep getting richer, and the people in the middle class and the poor, they are pretty much just stagnant or in some cases even losing ground. And we've got to do something about it. People need to be able to earn an honest living. For people that claim that you got to pull up your bootstraps and work hard and you'll be successful and you can survive on your own, they're certainly doing everything in their power to prevent you from working hard and earning an honest living. They want to just keep you down. A lot of people will say, who make more than the minimum wage presently, well, if you raise the minimum wage, then somebody who's just starting, who just got hired, is going to be making as much as I do, and I've been working this job for, however long, 10 years. How is that fair? That doesn't make any sense. I'll need a raise too. Well, if you were to get a raise, that would be up to your employer. But in all honesty, I'm sorry. It may seem unfair, but that's not taking anything away from you. You have been perfectly content with the wage that you've been making, and offering somebody else that opportunity to be able to support themselves and have a decent life that you have is not taking away anything from you. It's giving something to someone else. And really, it's not that person's fault. It is the fault of the politicians who have lagged terribly on this issue and who have refused to allow the minimum wage to keep pace with inflation. If we could just have the minimum wage tied to a cost of living increase like we do with Social Security, this would not be a problem. We would have the minimum wage at an acceptable level now, and people who have been working for longer would be making more money as appropriate. But we have to do something. We can't just let this continue on because of that. So it may seem unfair, but something has to be done at some point. And a lot of people argue that, hey, minimum wage jobs, those are just for kids and teenagers and they're entry level jobs. You should work your way out of that. Well, that's not always the case. I think that, up to 30% of people making minimum wage are doing that to support a family, or people who even have degrees that can't get a job in their field, especially in this economy. People have to do whatever they have to get by. Again, people are always saying, oh, you got to work hard, don't take any handouts. Well, people are doing whatever they have to do to get by, and they're not even able to make enough money to support themselves. And that's just wrong. I think that what we need to do is we need to take a similar approach to what Australia did. And what they did is they instituted a living wage, and it's somewhere in the range of $16 an hour. I believe that's Australian dollars. I'm not sure what the conversion is, but it's graduated. I know that like 16-year-olds make less money than I think a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old. So it's graduated for younger kids who typically are not supporting a family. They're just out there trying to get some experience and earn a little extra money. So you can look at that as age discrimination if you want, but I think it's fair. I was 16, 15, in fact, once, and worked for minimum wage. And I think that's okay. I would just view it as a built-in raise. As you age, early on, as you age, you get a raise every year. Because, a lot of people haven't gotten raises. There's been wage freezes with this economy in the United States the past few years, and people just aren't getting raises. So at least that's a built-in raise. And so would tying minimum wage to the cost of living. And, that $10.10 an hour, that is, tied to inflation, but that still doesn't even account for other costs of living increases. The cost of fuel has gone up. The cost of rent or your mortgage has gone up for housing, and the cost of college tuition has skyrocketed. I mean, somebody making minimum wage in the 1970s could work full time and not have any student debt by the time they graduated college. Now, if you made minimum wage, good luck. I mean, I have a very good job, and I still owe thousands upon thousands of dollars in student loan debt, and I will be paying that off for the next couple decades. So, expecting people to go to college to better themselves, to get a better job, to get out of that minimum wage job while working for minimum wage is just unrealistic. So the bottom line is that we need to do something. The minimum wage needs to be raised minimally to $10.10 an hour. Ideally, we would also tie that to cost of living increases or some graduated increase over the next several years to get it up to a more reasonable level. That way businesses could adjust and the economy could adjust and everything could come out smoothly. But the people who are really arguing against this are the corporate elite, the wealthy, because they don't want it to cut into their profits. And that's the bottom line. It's simple. There's no denying it. We need to pay people an honest wage for honest work. It's just a simple reality that if everyone in the United States had training in a skill or had a college degree and a master's degree or even a PhD, we would still need people to do menial work. We would still need janitors. We would still need people to make our burgers at fast food restaurants. We'd still need waiters and waitresses. We'd still need people to stock the shelves at grocery stores. And do you really think that employers and companies are going to pay people more money to do those jobs simply because they have an education or some training? No, it simply is not the case. So, lastly, people that use that argument that people should just go to college or get training and get a skill and better themselves and move up, it just doesn't hold any water. We will always need people to do these jobs, and they're not going to get paid more just because they went to school or they have been trained to do something when they're doing menial work. So the fairest and the best thing to do is to just offer everyone who works hard at least the opportunity to support themselves and their family.